Well, I know what you want to talk about today, so you've been not nonstop in my ear about it.
OpenAI came up with a new model that does reasoning. And it shows you the steps of reasoning it does. And it's illuminating. I think for us as investors, we saw a lot of companies that are, in some way, shape, or form, or trying to enhance the raw capabilities of the models we've seen so far by thought chaining, and like multi-agent coordination. And then OpenAI comes up with a new model that kind of eats away in that capability. I'm not saying it's game over, but it's definitely, it gives you a hint to where things are heading. All right, now let's ask it an interesting question. So summarize the following URL. Let's see what happens. It's been thinking for 6 seconds. All right, so it's kind of break down its own task into subtasks, and it tells you what those subtasks are. And then you can start seeing what people call metacognition, planning, stuff that used to be extremely complicated for AI systems to do. And it's just this amazing thing that once we unlock language, we can do all that. Anyway, it's a nice summary. Fantastic. Okay. How about we ask this? We're a AI-focused VC fund. How should we react to this policy in a way that maximizes shareholder value? Let's see.
Love that. So this is at what stage is this? When is this going to be fully released? Have they
Well, it's a stage that I play with it so much that I got banned for a week because I ran out of quota. So they're still cheap about it, because I think every request is like 5 times the maybe I don't actually, probably 10 times the cost. All right. What's interesting for me is to open up the thought process. Check the thought process up. Look at what he's trying to do. Understand the question. I think what's evident here is there was this claim that AI systems don't think, they're just auto-completing. Large language model are stochastic parrots. They're just statistical engines. And it's kind of hard to, refute, because underlying the model itself is a statistical game that, auto-completes, if you want, the mechanism of attention inside the large language model and so forth. But what people forget is that that's just the baseline. It's like saying life forms is just neurons, brains are just neurons, electrical signals in the neurons. Yeah, sure, but brains can think.
I'm just comparing this now to what the current model, the current version, ChatGPT 4 would return. And so this is what it gave without any other, sort of further details. So this is what it previously would give right now.
The thing that they were demonstrating was like all sorts of riddles and complicated logic games that you need to do, like to be super clever in an IQ test. So anyway, so it can solve riddles that the other models couldn't, because it's a multi-step thought process that's required. And the other model was just one pass through the model and kind of auto-complete itself as they do, and you end up with what you got. But then now they go through multiple passes. And in fact, you can geek out about it, but like that is the core architecture of a brain, is that repeating kind of, the fact that it's not a one pass, it's basically refinement of a thought process. Anyway, I'm very excited about it, but it's also scary. And is it scary about? I'm not going to go doom AI now, and you can if you want to. I would just say it's clear that the game here is that the smarter the system is, it's going to win on it. Like, it's just simple. It's a game of who's smarter. Once you've got a smarter, ever more intelligent system, the stuff it can do becomes ever more great.
Oh, I think this is huge. I think if we think about it from what are we seeing in investments that are coming in our way? We talked about this yesterday. We already had something that we were looking at that, this makes it difficult to think that we could invest in that business given the advancements in this and why you would use certain products that are being developed already around that thought process. Or, you could also turbocharge some of what is there. But I do think there are products out there that I think are going to be, the value is going to come out of them because you can do this straight out of the box.
I think the reality is that we see a lot of companies that in some way, shape, or form, what they do is make the model smarter for a particular use case. And once the base model gets smarter, that line of business is basically being commoditized. There's not a lot of value. Now, what's if you train a model or refine a model specifically to a vertical, that's step one. You need to assume the AI-based models are going to get there in terms of the intelligence. Now, that does not mean that you can't put together a workflow. So I'm big on workflow now. I'm thinking, well, still, if I work in a government department, or I work in some marketing department, or I work in some design agency, or I work in some big enterprise HR firm, and I need a solution leveraging AI, is my solution for my team just comprised of a chat interface that we talk to? Could be. But I think there's opportunities for products that make that task that I want to do, which connects also to my enterprise data and works with my team inside a regulatory environment that we operate in. I think there's still opportunities for companies in that of that pattern, even though they will the question is, will they survive as the AI gets smarter? And the answer is that is a maybe. There's always a maybe, but I still believe that that's a viable kind of business opportunity and an investable value proposition. Where are you?
Yeah. So I think there's certain. I think there's a big problem if you're a consultant, and there's lots of consulting firms around the world, and I live in Canberra, and if I look in the government, there's been a lot of things here around all the big consultancies and how they've led the government in Australia, or operated in certain ways. I think actually consultants are in trouble with this, and what I see here, and I see this thought press going on here where government is thinking about having their own internal consultancies now. And I can see that companies will, rather than going externally, will actually bring it internal and use these kinds of tools within their own organizations. And so if I was an external consultancy, the big ones, and I would be pretty concerned. Their business model is to hire smart young people, charge them out at an extremely high rate, and then work them hard to do all this research. Now, this comes straight out of the box. So, and I'm seeing that as well. I'm seeing a lot of people who are smart graduates now not wanting to go and work in those organizations. Whereas before, if you had a job, you'd go and work for, I'm not going to name the companies, but the consultancies that are there. And I see now less and less people who want to go and work for these companies. And I think they've got some pretty big challenges with that.
Is it net bad or net good for society?
I think it's net good but what I'm saying is it's taking that highly profitable consultancies and flipping it on its head. And so it means that these companies that are, I think, actually exploiting in some ways. I won't say exploit, but if people pay it, they pay it. But I think particularly in this town, and it's in many other, you have some very highly paid consultancies that I feel are going to be not able to do what they were previously doing, unless you can't, so if you know how to use this in sense with other realistic things that you can do with humans, relationships, bring that all together using these kinds of tools. But it means they have to shrink. And I think from the point of view of what they can charge, I think has to change.
Exactly. So there's the impact on the business of consulting, and there's the impact of society or government or companies that buy those. And I'm an optimist, so I'd like to think that, look, if it used to cost you millions of dollars to hire a group of nerds, researchers, analysts to come up with essentially at the end a lot of text. Sure, they've done a lot of amount of thinking and whiteboarding and post-it notes sessions and reading and analyzing. At the end of the day, the outcome is a policy paper or research report or a government policy position paper or a white paper or a green paper, whatever they call them. Okay, now we have machines that do unbelievable. It's magic. Okay, but like the truth is that machines can pretty much do. You can argue mine is better. Okay, sure, but the thing that used to cost you $1 million, you can now do in like, let's say $10,000, and like instead of a year. And you do it in an hour. So, okay. So you still get the same outcome of policy quality. Okay, what's left to do? Well, actually implement the policy. I mean, how much is our government is being wasting? Not only our Australian government, but governments are wasting on basically paperwork and paying those people to generate paperwork. A lot. do we do that's kind of the I call it the muscle and the fat. That's the fat. What's the muscle? The doing, the executive, the actually executing, the actually getting the things that we talked about done in the reality. Like not another 2050 net zero energy report, but actually the implementation of it and measurement and change in society. So I hope, and I think I'm not the only one in eyes in the sky kind of character, that this efficiency gain we have in society will mean that we're going to be able to dedicate more money and resources, less to the thinking part and more to the doing part. How's that as a positive spin?
Yeah, look, I just think this is a pretty big change that I think will impact those industries and a lot more other industries. And I think we've seen quite a few startups doing some things that are very similar. And I think that's what I think is difficult to invest in this space, is thinking ahead of where that may go. And you actually pointed this out, to us in some of the things that we're looking at, that this is going to be a difficult area to build businesses in when the models can do that. And so I actually smiled because the other people that are also impacted is PhDs. It said it's PhD level. I know you're a PhD, and I always tease you about that. But it's operating at a PhD level. So does that mean, what does that mean? Look, it's interesting, isn't it?
The hope is that we can be a smarter species. All right. If it takes me 3 years to summarize 120 papers in a topic, but reading 500 of them and then writing some contribution stuff, and that's something that same level of insight is now achievable in a click of a button. I'm gonna simplify, but for argument's sake, then hopefully building knowledge building and insight development, which is a slow process, human process, can be accelerated. So am I going to cry that, like, oh, I was working so nicely on my book? Yeah, a little bit, but I think we need to also be feeling liberated that we don't have to do that nonsense.
Well, I was helping someone this is also the other implications of this. I was helping someone just yesterday who was looking to apply for a particular job, and they had to do a written bit of work. And what they had to do was sign a declaration that they were not using AI to do that. And so one of the questions, how do you test for that? But the way they did that was, and I think this is going to be part of interview processes now, to go, if you have to do a bit of work, one, you sign something saying that, but two, they then had to do a video explaining their own logic around how they came up with the solution to whatever they were producing. Having said that, this could be used to explain the logic, and you could take that on as your own. You know what I mean? Like now it's actually showing you how that thought process works, which you could actually take on. So it's going to be interesting how you can actually tell what someone's original thoughts are when they are able to use these tools as well.
I think philosophically speaking, almost philosophically, you're almost arguing like, is there value in knowing something? And then some parts of society, especially in the knowledge economy, some roles are experts in a topic, and that's their role. So someone who's I met people whose job was to be experts in adaptive learning, and they be hired and get a really nice salary, and they sit on all those meetings, and people ask them questions, and they answer some of their expertise. And so, or some people who are experts about regulations or law or HR policies, and their job is to know it. And so knowledge is basically like, my job is I know something, and as a result, I can go and get a job and being paid to know the thing and answer questions in my organization or something. That's kind of dead, because like, if I want to ask a question that is deep related to HR policy, I kind of, between us, we can kind of do it with OpenAI. Maybe the government says like, oh, sure, you need to still have an accountant sign it or something. I'm sure maybe they will find out a way to keep themselves busy, but like, it just broadened the capacity of and reduce the cost of this thing by and large. So it's almost like that. I think that part is going away. My job is to know a thing. Is that's going away. This type of businesses now, this type of jobs, and I never frankly liked it, because if you meet those guys, they just know it. They know it all, guys, and they're getting paid sometimes ridiculous for knowing something. And if it's in the legal space, or they'll never give you the answer. They always give you some sort of vague, you know. If you ever see, like, you get engaged with this, I did work with big four consultants, got paid a lot of money to get legal advice. Basically, it's all the risk on you, and we just tell you they're kind of covering their ass.
I think the business model is dead as it stands, basically. I really do feel that.
I want to pivot now to a quick other pivot that's about to be disrupted, which is what we're doing right now. You ready? Google comes up with NotebookLM. You upload your PDF, so links to websites, and it generates everything you need, basically. So it can generate a podcast. Google generate podcast from PDF, basically. Google new tool turns PDFs into podcasts. Basically, you can just, long story short, go to NotebookLM, google.com, and upload your PDF, click Notebook Guide or phone. So people basically are now create a podcast at the click of a button. You upload your PDF, and you ask the questions, and it speaks to you. What are we going to do, Yash? What are we going to do now? You're happy when what are they going to do if they come for me? What are you going to do if they come for
sure
you?
It's not as funny as us. That's probably the main. Good. Look, that I think we should use it to help us. Right? It's this is the point of what we're doing. I think we should actually do that in a lot of ways, and create. We have some outlines sometimes of topics we want to discuss. I think this is interesting.
This is game changing. This is how game changing looks like.
The last thing I just want to talk about today, I know we spent a long time, I know, on that the new model, but was actually about the new proposed regulations in AI in Australia, and what you sort of think about that. And so this is out for discussion right now. I think early October they're looking for people to come through, but really looking at there's sort of two categories of how you deal with high risk AI, and by high risk we mean things that could impact individuals' rights, health, safety, and so forth. But also around highly capable, and we talk about general purpose AI models with a potential for wide-ranging, unforeseen applications. And so, putting that together, there's a thing around putting guardrails there, and the guardrails are around accountability, around risk management, protecting of IP and data governance, testing and monitoring the models, enabling human oversight, informing humans about AI-enabled decisions, and allowing people to challenge AI outcomes, and maintaining that transparency. There are a couple other things about keeping compliance records and conducting conformity assessments. Now, that's a lot of stuff that they're talking about. How do you see if the government can really implement these kinds of things? What's your thoughts around this? Is this good, bad, or is it even achievable given the way things work right now?
It's neither good or bad. It's just maybe sad, but that's a reality. So the guys in Silicon Valley, Mark Andreessen's, from H16Z, and they've been very vocal about how this type of government intervention will create regulatory capture by a few elite organizations worldwide that will have all the power. And that's exactly what will happen. But it's also the only logical outcome of this type of innovation and this type of change in society. So it's kind of, in that way, it's kind of dangerous and sad to have so much power in the power of the so few. But I don't think it's so different, because we have a huge amount of power in governments in the form of nuclear weapons and control over infrastructure. So if you agree and understand, if you believe that AI is a power as big as greater if not greater than nuclear power, it should be regulated by some way, shape. If you're afraid that your government will turn totalitarian and stifle your freedom, and like many libertarians in Silicon Valley, then you're in trouble. Go join the rebels on Mars. Jump to the spaceship of Elon Musk and see how that goes for you. If you believe fundamentally in the process of democracy, which is the best thing we have so far, that's not perfect by far, not perfect, but it's better than all the alternatives, then it's just natural to say, well, we need government oversight. We can't have private companies, unregulated, building models that we don't understand the risk in them. And if you go and dismiss and saying, I don't think there's any risk in them, you just haven't been paying attention and haven't thought about it sufficiently. So that's kind of, it's I had a bet with someone about regulatory. I said within 12 months there will be global regulation on AI since OpenAI. I lost that bet because it took more than 12 months.
Well, isn't this a bit of deja vu? We've had this discussion before, probably about 2 years ago, almost now, like a year and a half
Correct.
at least. We talked about this is what's going to happen, and the need for that regulation, like a powerful weapon. Look, I feel there's some opportunities that are going to come out here for startups, and in that almost when we talk about data governance and uh, around explainability and auditing and making sure the right compliance things are happening, I think there's going to be some interesting solutions that need to be built. So I look at it this way, that there's hopefully a balance that we can get where people can use a lot of these tools effectively, but people have the recourse to say, hold on, how was this decision made? I think today as well, looking at that new OpenAI model, being able to look at a chain of thought helps to maybe rectify that, to go, well, this is how this was made. Is that correct or incorrect? Do you agree? You can actually question the logic as opposed to just a black box that outputs something. So I think this explainability and transparency is needs to be in all of the models, needs to be in all of our AI solutions as well, because people are going to be implicated by this and impacted by the decisions that are going to come out of this, because people become lazy and they just put it out to this sort of black box. And so I think this will be interesting to see what happens. I think once again, I think from an investor point of view, this is an opportunity, and for founders out there as well. Whilst we talk about all these changes that are happening that might take away your business, I think equally there's opportunities to create solutions. And so I think that's where I sort of feel like today where we're at is another week, is like another month, and this is a big step forward, and I can't wait to see what some of the other competitors of OpenAI will do as well. But as a I think the tech industry is going to move forward. I think society can hopefully use some of these things to really move things forward as well. And so I'm, once again excited what we see this week. I always look forward to us talking, because it's like there's something that's changed drastically each week. And so I think there's been another great discussion of This Week in AI.
This is another This Week in AI with Dror and Yash from Empress Capital. Where if you're as excited as us by all the change and innovation and scary stuff as well as exciting stuff that comes from the AI world, don't make sure to reach out, connect with us. We invest in early stage startups that are changing, paradigm changing in that has an AI edge, and we're interested to talk to you. See you later.
See you later.